Hello, welcome. My name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here. Today I have for you a list of my favorite dystopias. Let's start with just like how do we define a dystopia? It's a future world where instead of it being wonderful like utopia, it's sort of a disaster. So that's what dystopia means. So these are futures in which the world has sort of fallen apart and changed in such ways that are very, very upsetting. These are just in alphabetical order because they're my favorite, and I can't possibly pick one over another as being the better or the best because they're all slightly different. But they're all really great. These are all wonderful, wonderful books. So join me on the ride. Okay, number one. You've hopefully, please, dear God, heard of this one. It's called 1984 by George Orwell. And it's actually known as one of those books that people lie about reading. There are statistics about how people will say that they've read it, but they actually haven't. I really think you ought to give it a shot. Especially if you had to read it as a child because you probably didn't quite get what you should have out of it because you were made to read it. But 1984 was written in 1948, right? And it was written about 1984. And this is where the term Big Brother comes from. So there are punishments for thought crimes, basically. So if you believe a certain way, the government will take you and make sure that you feel what they believe is the correct way. There's some really, really interesting aspects to this new way of speaking, and the change of language and how things become very, very simple. And by making things simple, people don't have as many ideas or as much drive because everything has become very simple and precise, not precise, very simple and just it covers, you say things are either good, very good, bad, very bad. That's it. You don't need wonderful and devastating and all the other words that go along. You can just say bad or more bad. The ending is devastating. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Hopefully you have or will read the book. It's devastating at the end. So bear that in mind. Okay. Oh no. The next one is written, I believe, by a Japanese person. If I got the wrong country, I'm really, really sorry. But it's called Battle Royale, and it's by Koushun Takami. Koushun Takami, I believe. Oh, this one. First of all, I'm going to warn you that if you are not from an Asian country or an Asian speaker, the names are going to be rather difficult because they're names you've never heard of before. So it's kind of hard to follow which kid they're talking about, although they do have numbers as well, which really helps. So this is the story of a future Japanese regime, this country, to test their strength and battle skills. They every year they pick an eighth or ninth grade class, and put them to this battle royale test. And basically it's they're given either an island, or like in this instance, I believe it's an island, where they're given a map and there's certain sectors, and they announce which sectors they're allowed to be in and which they're not, so that they have to keep moving. Also, there's like rules, like if nobody is killed in the first, I don't know if it's like in the first 12 hours or something, then like people, then the game makers are gonna do some things to make you get involved. They all the kids, when they wake up from their bus trip, which knocks them out, they wake up with these metal collars on them, which the game players can use to end their lives. So there are a couple of very, very sadistic kids that are like, oh, I know how to play this game. And then there are a couple of kids that sort of like bond together and try to figure out a way to beat the game. This is as far as I'll go. It's not a short book. It's a pretty long book. But if you think that The Hunger Games was the first ever kids killing each other for the government story, you are mistaken. This came out first. So now I don't think probably that they read each other's stories, but it's just really interesting. This is, I think, came out in the late 1990s. It's really interesting. It blew my mind also. So I did not see it going where it went, which is neat. Okay, number 3 is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. The Girl with All the Gifts. Oh, I got too close to my microphone. How do I describe this? So there's a movie. It's a pretty good movie. It really is. It does a pretty good job of sticking close to the story. Where do we start? We start in a classroom. That's what I'm gonna. Yeah, let's start in the classroom. So there's a classroom, and it is filled with students who are strapped into wheelchairs, and like their heads are strapped in, like they are strapped in. And the teacher comes in and starts talking about, I don't know if it's mythology or math or what, but you discovered that the girl with all the gifts, is extremely intelligent. When she says, who's, off of the periodic table, whose atomic number is, and she just knows. Here you go, this is the information. So she's really, really smart. And these are kids. So picture, I don't know, 12-ish. And we meet the guards that treat these children like they call them, oh God, terrible names, and treat them terribly. And the teacher is treating them like children, like respecting and wanting to teach them. And one of the guards comes in and yells at her because I think she either unstraps someone's head or she unstraps someone's arm. And so the other officer comes in. They're like military. Comes in and he washes off his arm. You don't know why. He washes off his arm. And then he puts it in front of one of the kids' faces. And they turn snarling and murderous and hungry beyond hungry, and you're like, oh wait, is that child a zombie of some kind? Facility that they're in gets overrun because this is a big problem out in the world, this affliction, I'll call it. And they're trying to study the children because the children seem to be slightly different than the people who were just changed. So they can take the time to think and communicate and talk, and they're not quite as feral as the adults that have been affected with this. And so that's why these classrooms and this research facility, blah, blah, blah. The facility gets overrun, and the girl, along with her teacher and a couple of scientists and some of the military officers, commandeer this. It's like a science lab on wheels, and try to both save themselves and get away and see if they can't figure out how to solve this major thing that's happening. I loved it. I read it and like 2 weeks later read it again, which is not something I usually do. I mean, I do reread things that I love, but this one was like, I just keep thinking about it. I need to listen to it again. This one I listened to. It's really fun. You know, I mean, it's disturbing, but it's fun. I really enjoyed the ride on this one. And in the movie, the scientist is played by Glenn Close. So there's even a big name in it. Okay, number 4. I'm assuming most people have heard of this because of the TV series that is out now, but I can't make a dystopian list and not include The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. The Handmaid's Tale is about a future of America where a section has been renamed Gilead, where women are no longer allowed to read. The officers, the male officers, have wives, but the wives, for the most part, can't get pregnant. They never really explain why. Their fertility is lower. So these high-ranking officials' wives also get a handmaid. And a handmaid from like way back when was someone who the husband could inseminate to have children. So there's this crazy ritual where the wife is not just as involved, but is involved with the R word of The Handmaid's Tale. And it's this sanctioned R wording. I mean, it's completely sanctioned violence. And the control that has been placed over these handmaids, they don't have their names anymore. If their commander is named Fred, then they're of Fred. If their commander's name is Mark, they're of Mark. If their commander's name is Jason, they're of Jason. I mean, they don't have a name anymore. And the only way that they are considered successful in life is if they have babies, but those aren't babies that they're allowed to raise or be with. So like the baby is born and they get a new house to be a part of, because that baby is supposed to be the baby of the head of the households and his wife, not the handmaid. She's just a body to make a child. So I really liked listening to this because and I read it as a kid, and I had to, you know, like not a kid, but like when I was younger and I had to read it because it was, you know, required reading. I've since listened to it, you know, in my older years, and Claire Danes is actually the one who does the audiobook, and she's got the perfect voice and attitude and affect in telling the story, and it's really, I think it just elevates it that much more. It's rough. If you watch the series, know that after the first season, the book is just like a basis of where the story goes. The first season is the only one that really is the story that Margaret Atwood wrote. Although I think she's involved in the series. So, okay, halfway to number 5. Hopefully you guys have heard of this one too. This is one that I read. And I read all 3, and then I read all 3 again. And then I got the audio, and I listened to the audio. So this is Hunger Games. For those of you who don't know, The Hunger Games is the idea that it's the future, and the capital, which is running the whole country, is in charge of all of the districts, and there are 12 districts, and each district is responsible for a different required part of life. So, District 12 is where the coal mines are. I don't remember specifically the other ones, but some are, growing cotton. Some are growing corn. Some are, creating. I'm sorry, I can't remember specifically all of the different districts things, but they're separate. You can't like travel in between districts. You were born in District 12, you live in District 12, you die in District 12. So there was a rebellion that happened like 75 years before our story commences, and as punishment for that rebellion, the government holds a yearly game where a boy and a girl from each district are picked to compete in a to the death game where one person wins. Our main character, who we meet in District 12, it's her sister's first year that it's 12 to 17, I think, is how old the kids are. And so they go to the reaping, which is the day that everyone's names get picked, and our main character's little sister gets picked, so she volunteers to go in her place. And it's really well written. It's such a cool adventure. The game is wacky, and then somehow they manage to do a second one, and then like it's almost like in the third one the war is kind of like another game. It's really neat. I enjoyed it immensely. It's very depressing. There are definitely times that are gonna like rip your heart out, but it's a dystopia, so that's what you get. Okay. I think we've reached one maybe you guys haven't heard of. Number 6 is The Last Tribe by Brad Manuel. I love this book. Oh my God, I love this book so much. This is such a fun book. It's kind of an epic. Like it's a lot of time goes by, and a lot of areas are transversed. And so this is a future where a virus kills like 99.8% of the population on the planet. And there's one family, oddly, that the brothers, who are all like father age, the brothers all survive. I think there's 3 brothers that survive, and one of the brothers' wives survives. And then all of their sons. So there's this like core family that starts our new community. And starts is our families reach out to one of their children who survives, and he has gone early to boarding school for, I think, sports or something. So he's already at boarding school when this tragedy hits, and he manages to get a hold of his father, who says, go to your grandparents' place, which is... He's in New England. So this is also in New England. And he's like, and we will find a way to get to you. This teenage boy, this young, I think he's 14, 15, sort of just starts walking. and he runs into a girl who is one of the most incredible characters I've ever read about. She is so cool. Really, really smart. Really, really smart. Like the smartest person in the room by far, even though she's 13. And she and him meet and decide that they're going to help each other. They do this great job of sort of surviving, the two of them. At the same time, his family is trying to get together and travel to where he and this girl are traveling, the grandparents' place. It's it feels so real because they'll spend time just trying to figure out how they're going to feed everyone. Like, we just need food, like edible food, and for people. Or we need heat. We can't, it's New Hampshire and it's December, and so it's snowing and the world has gone to hell. So how do you keep warm? The kids get there first, and they do an amazing job of picking the perfect place that they can actually keep warm, and they can actually use as how, like if it's a huge house, you're never going to be able to keep it warm. So they find this little small house, and they do a great job of setting it up. And at the same time, the families are traveling from, is it like South Carolina or somewhere south, and they start picking up other people. There's this woman who's on the side of the road, and she's like, oh my god, there's a whole group of people, can I join you? I'm all alone. Like, so they start picking up stragglers, and they end up going to New York City, where things are a big mess, but they pick up more people. And it's literally just the story of these people finding each other. It's the last tribe. So it's like this final tribe of people and how they try to figure out how to start over. It's so cool. It's a fun, neat story. And it's pretty long, and it's great. The characters are great. It's one of my favorite books out there. I mean, it's just it's a lot of fun. And there are definitely times when it gets really worrisome. I mean, it's just great. Okay, now I'm going in alphabetical order, so the next two are actually by the same author. So just how the cookie crumbles. So the next one on my list is a book that I recommend to everyone who asks for recommendations of books from me. Like if I run into somebody and they say, I've never read any Stephen King. You've never read any Stephen King? I have the book for you to start with, The Long Walk. Now, actually, this is my original copy of The Long Walk. Now, this is, yes, it's overloved. Stephen King put out a 4-novella book collection under the name Richard Bachman. So, to see if he could sell under a different name. So this is called the Bachman books, and it has Rage. It's very controversial. The Long Walk, which we're going to talk about, Road Work, and The Running Man. These are all pretty famous stories. And I have lent it out so many times for so many people to read that it has eventually come back in pieces. But that's okay because, of course, I purchased a new one so that I can still lend it out to people to read. So, The Long Walk. So, it's a future. Obviously, those are dystopias. This is a future where the biggest sporting event of the year is called The Long Walk, and it is an event where 100 boys, I think it's 2 from each state, because this is an American thing, start at the tip of Maine and walk all the way to the tip of Florida. And when I say walk, I mean walk and don't stop. So in the book, it says that they have to keep a pace of 4 miles per hour. Now, I think that if Stephen King was probably going to edit this book, he'd probably make it more like 2.5 miles per hour, because 4 miles per hour is like a slight jog. And I don't think that's what he was going for. So, but the idea being that they have to keep a certain pace, and if they get below that pace, they get a warning. 3 warnings, and it's a Stephen King book. What do you think happens? They're killed. So you go into this book that is, sort of like an athletic competition, knowing that 99 of the boys that you're going to meet aren't going to make it. They walk until they fall, and just the relationships that grow between them, the different personalities of the different boys who have decided to do this, how every single one of them thinks that they're going to win. You learn about the general who runs the whole thing, and it's just the first time I read it when I was young, it took me 2 days. Like I started it on Friday, like after school, and then finished it on Saturday, and like literally could not stop reading. Like so good. So really, it's a great story. If you haven't read The Long Walk by Stephen King, I highly suggest you give it a shot. The eighth book on my list is also by Stephen King. It is probably one of the most famous dystopias out there, which is The Stand. Now, The Stand was originally published with about 400 or so pages. It was an abridged version. The I guess the publishing company didn't think that anyone would read a book that was this long. So if you haven't experienced it, please find the unabridged version. It's like 1,000 pages. It's worth it. The first time I read it, I spent a summer reading it, and it was great. And there are two miniseries. Neither of them are great. It's another epidemic. It's another pandemic. It's where 99% of the population dies, and there is an epic battle between good and evil happening, and people are being sent visions of a sort of devil man and a sort of angel woman, and people are being pulled to one or the other, and some people are being sort of shown both and to figure out which one they're being pulled to, and those two camps become like warring nations almost, and the good people that are trying to like rebuild society, and the bad people, I think they set up in Vegas, which is just great, and it's debauchery, and it's debauchery that they're engaging in. And there's so many really cool characters and so many really cool, like, I'll always say Stephen King is so great at writing character development and relationships that you feel like you truly understand what's going on between all of these people. And it's a lot of fun. Be prepared for, some time to get through it. It's not the shortest book. It's funny because The Long Walk is actually pretty short because it's a novella. So, Stephen King short book, Stephen King long book. Okay, number 9. Oh, I love this one. This is another really, really good one that I don't think a lot of people know about. It's called Seed by Michael Edelman. And this is a cool book. So, our characters, it's one of those things that just starts and you're like, what is happening? Like, someone explain something to me. Our main characters wake up and they're on an island. Each of them is in like their own little like domicile is probably the best way to call it. And they wake up and they're like, what is happening? Why are we here? And they're trying to figure out what's going on. And like, there are certain people who are in charge of certain aspects of this little community that they wake up in. So there's someone who's considered, I think they call them the mayor. And then there's someone who's in charge of all of the military stuff. And our main character who we meet at first, she's the very first person we meet, is military. And he happens to be the one in this village that's in charge of all the military stuff. And that means like all the ammunition, all the equipment, all that kind of stuff. And it isn't like the mayor also has it. Like he's really truly in charge of that. And then the mayor is in charge of, it's just so that someone can be in charge. And they start to realize that the world has, this is like the sci-fi part of it. There's a barrier around their community that it's not one you can see, but you feel it. So you start to walk into it and you start to feel sick. And you start to feel really, really sick. and then you start to feel even sicker, and then it's like you can't even move. So, and if you stay out there in that barrier, it will, long enough, it will unalive you. So they realize they can't really get anywhere. They have to sort of stay in this thing, and they don't understand if they're being protected or if they're being like, is it protecting them from what's outside the barrier? Is it protecting what's outside the barrier from getting inside with them? Who knows? And so there's a lot of just figuring out what's happening, and then you start to find out what's happening in the rest of the world. And it's really neat. It's really smart. It's really, the emotions are great. There's a love story. So Seed, I really liked it. It was one that I read again, which, like I said, I don't always do. But okay, number 10. Oh, this one is really good. It's really rough. Okay, Neal Shusterman writes YA books, so young adult. And when I say young adult, I mean, like, you got to be a teenager to read these. And the thing is, they usually have to do with teenagers. So this is Unwind. I put Unwind the book on here, but there's a whole series. I think there's 4 or 5 books. But the last book that came out was like a bunch of short stories about the world that Unwind takes place in. So it's not really necessarily a continuation of the story. It's more like a expansion of the story than a continuation. So Unwind takes place in a world where abortion is absolutely not legal by any stretch of anyone's imagination. You simply cannot get one. However, when your child is between the ages of, I think it's 13 and 17, you can choose to have them unwound. And what that means is all of their different parts, their body's different parts, get used by other bodies. So in this world, we can literally take a circulatory system out of someone and put it into someone else. Like, we have figured out how to do that. So the child who's unwound still technically is living because all of its parts are being used. So we didn't actually, like, unalive anyone. We just unwound them. But all their parts are still around in the world, and so we really didn't... Who does this happen to, right? So this happens to the kids whose parents are like, I can't deal with you. You're the worst. Go. I'm unwinding you. We meet a character who was brought up in, like, foster care or in the system, and, like, she's really, really good at, I think it's cello. And she knows that if she's the very, very best at cello, then she won't be unwound. She's the second best. So she's going to be unwound. There's another character we meet who's a tithe. And that means that, like, I forget which, like, if he's the 10th kid or he's the 8th kid or he's the 12th kid, whatever he is in the family, that child, when they're born, is considered a tithe. So at 12 or 13, they will go be unwound. And they know about this from the moment they're born. It is a place of honor. It's a place of high respect. He has this amazing party, the night before he's unwound, but then he has to be unwound, which is horrifying. And our trio of characters expands to be far more people. The teens end up trying to figure out how to sort of change the world and, like, try to, like, save people from this experience at all. And it's Unwound. I recommend reading all of them. I think they're really, really cool. But really, like, who could even think of such a thing? So those are what I think are the best dystopia novels out there that I've read. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot more out there I haven't experienced and are therefore wonderful, or that I just don't know how wonderful they are. But if you are looking for some good dystopias, here's 10 that you will definitely enjoy. At least I hope you'll enjoy. So just remember that some of these are have some really devastating stuff in them. So make sure you're in the right headspace before you take any of these on. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. And I will see you next time. Bye.